Good evening, my name is Tony Jones, and you are tuned in to The Coalition, where we discuss local, regional, and national politics, news, and current events. Don't forget to check out coalitionradio.us, facebook.com/coalitionradio, and of course on Twitter, coalition_radio. P.O. Taxpayer is here. P.O., good evening.
Hey now.
Christine is here. Chris, good evening.
Hello, Tony.
How are you all finding the huge government shutdown?
Huh?
Exactly.
They shut down?
That's exactly it.
Apparently they shut down, I think it's 17% of the government.
Some people at my day job were sent home this week, and
to an undisclosed location,
they didn't seem to be too upset by that prospect, because chances are they from what I understand, could still get paid.
Right.
The irony here is that we keep talking about government cutbacks. I think we're even beyond the point where we're talking about the rate of increase in the cost of government being cut back. I think what we're talking about is exponential. I think what they're upset about is that the rate of increase in government cutbacks is not going to be met.
We need to do some advanced calculus here, I guess.
Since when did Little Rhodey become a simultaneous equation?
Yeah.
By the way,
we're too small for that.
To everybody listening to our live show, all heck is currently breaking loose.
Hell's a popping over here.
It's going down at the White House right now. People are breaking down barriers, and people are ripping down things. I'm scared.
Don't be scared, Tony. I'll protect you.
Does any of us check our EBT cards today?
That's it. That was the other thing, too, yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, we're safe here in Little Rhodey because we could be flooded out, we could be attacked, Mothra could be on the horizon, but they'll keep the EBT cards up and running.
Well, we have to feed people. I don't have a problem with that. If you're feeding people to begin with, the solution isn't to suddenly yank everybody's EBT card. There needs to be a solution, but it's a long-term solution that's going to take time. Not, oops, sorry, you don't get to eat this week.
Why, Lord of the Flies comes to Rhode Island. Why, since Rhode Island is nothing but a gigantic reality game show, why not just up the ante?
Have you ever played SimCity?
No, but I'm old enough.
If you don't give the people who have trouble feeding themselves food, you get more panhandlers or more crime or more, everything has a consequence. You don't want to just say, oops, sorry, you don't have an EBT card anymore.
So we'd be, instead of having nearly 5 or 6 shootings a week in the capital city, we'd be up to...
Oh, we'd have far more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, but again, if you...
Well, we'd see more crazy things happening, like women with postpartum depression snapping because they can't feed the baby who's screaming they can't get out of their heads.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that road.
So instead of Escape from New York, it'll be Escape from Providence?
It could be.
So you're saying that there's the potential for a dystopic society here in Rhode Island?
No.
Don't bother, they're here.
I just think we should, I'm old enough. This is a reference that's probably beyond your years. But I think we should just turn downtown Providence, instead of this Grand Prix or Indy race they're having, I think just rollerball. Okay? Let's go with the rollerball game.
That could work.
James Caan.
Well, I wanted to tear up all of the streets downtown and replace them with canals.
I think that's already happened.
Well, it might as well happen, because nobody really wants to drive downtown anyway. So if you tear them all up, replace them with canals, it then becomes this eccentric tourist destination.
I ain't driving to the city.
Right. Parking? I'm not paying for parking. $1 for 3 hours? That's outrageous.
Like we talked about one time before, in music, you could play a show in Cranston, Rhode Island, you could play a show in Providence, Rhode Island, and play to a completely different crowd, even though they're 15 minutes away from each other.
I think you and I have actually done that.
Yeah, I have done that.
At the same gig.
It's like, I ain't driving to the city.
Well, Tony, I have to tell you, and again, as I always say, if I had any emotions, pride, or dignity left this week, I would have been hurt. I got my first real hate diatribe directed at me, thanks to my participation in the coalition. I'm only disappointed that it's taken a couple months.
I know. That should have happened the first show. You're being way too kind.
Well, I bet your reaction to this was, yay, somebody was listening.
Well, I threw out a verbal bomb on the Occupy New England page, and basically my assertion has been that the 1% that the Occupy referred to are not the corporate status, are not the rich and wealthy. To me, the 1% is the government. And, as facts have borne that out this week, during the shutdown, we have all hell breaking loose, all sorts of public services that are allegedly being stolen from us. But the first order of business was to make sure that the federales got paid. So when I objected to that and pointed out that their income, the only growth area in America right now overall in terms of income, is the area surrounding the District of Columbia, that the rate of increase in salaries and benefits, again, let's use the word exponential, is increasing exponentially faster than that of the dreaded private sector. I was accused of things that on an FCC station I can't.
Sweet.
A young man named Pat wow. I was kind of impressed by the sheer ferocity, the personal nature, and the complete randomness of the terms thrown together. And before I even had a chance to even explain who, what, where, and it occurred to me that simultaneously this week, I guess there's a page called Libertarian Girl, and I guess she made the mistake of deciding that she's a small LP as opposed to a big LP. And I guess a big LP is, if you belong to the Libertarian Party, the small LP is if you're just a libertarian.
Right. I think she advocates, which has been advocated for a while now, which is just stupid, quote unquote, taking over the Republican Party.
Oh. We'll get into that in a second. By the way, there are still tickets available for the Stinger auction. Let us know. Facebook us. All right.
Who's auctioning that? Is that the coalition?
The coalition is auctioning that. Also, we've been donated 3 sets of RPGs, rocket propelled grenades, that we're going to have as a second prize. But
I'm hoping for a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher myself.
Okay.
I think that would go really nicely with my.
No.
Yeah, I've got boots that would look great with. So.
I know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Geek alert, geek guy alert. Yeah. But it struck me that from both sides of the aisle, we have the same issue. If you don't, display a form of ideological purity not seen since the Cultural Revolution in China, whether you be, a libertarian, or you be, if you're not libertarian enough, if you're not green enough, somehow folks just come out of the woodwork hurling these labels at you, and it doesn't matter, a lifetime of good works, good thoughts, trying to do the right thing by people. No, in fact, and the nonsense, and this is from both sides of the aisle, the nonsensical nature of just the insults that are thrown out there. Folks, take a deep breath. One of the mantras here of the show is that, there's the Greens, there's the Libertarians. And we both actually kind of want to get to the same place. The only difference is how we get there. Mm-hmm. We both hate big politics. We both hate both major parties. But like I said, I just had this flashback to what I've read about the Cultural Revolution, where people were interrogated about their degree of ideological purity.
Right.
Have you seen that, Chris, in your...
I don't go around poking hornets' nests quite as much as you do.
Well,
I don't go to the Occupy New England page and say things that they can't possibly agree with.
Okay, you may have a point there.
And getting to that point, I appreciate your point about government protecting itself, and of course it does do that, but right now our government is very largely bought and paid for by the corporations. So when you're talking about the 1% being the government, it's probably the 2%. 1% is government, 1% is the corporations who own them.
Okay,
every politician these days, there's been a meme going around showing the Supreme Court justices with stickers on their robes from the various corporations that seem to be supporting
NASCAR.
Yeah,
judges.
Exactly. And I'd actually like to see our elected representatives walk around with those. If you've taken more than some token amount of money from any particular industry, any particular business, you should have to wear a logo. You should have to preface your remarks with, I'm partially sponsored by Big Pharma, the NRA.
Kind of like NPR does.
Yeah, exactly.
Right before the NPR argues against GMOs, they say, and we're sponsored by Archer Daniels Midland.
Yes, and they should have to do that. I would love to see the senator from Iowa stand up and start saying, I'm the senator from Iowa, sponsored by Archer Daniels Midland.
Yeah.
Or maybe when he's introduced on the floor, the senator from Archer Daniels Midland is about to speak.
So instead of Garrison Keillor doing the ketchup board, he should be doing the corn board,
right?
All right? Because only in America could we, in favor of liberalism. By the way, I'm about to throw a bomb out. Okay.
I'll brace myself.
In order to save the world, we can starve Mexicans, the Mexican economy, and dramatically increase the price of corn by using it as a form of replacement of fossil fuel that actually has a bigger greenhouse effect and isn't as fuel efficient as the other carbon fuel. You mean that?
Yeah, for example.
Okay, just kind of a stretch.
Yeah, exactly. We're subsidizing the production of ethanol because we subsidize this massive surplus of corn, and then we warehouse it, or silo it, I guess is the more technical term. Then we try to find people or countries willing to buy it. Mm-hmm. We've created a market for something called high fructose corn syrup, which actually isn't very good for you.
Right.
Aside from the fact that it may or may not have a chemical structure, this is still being disputed by the scientists. It may have a chemical structure that differs from regular sugar in ways that affect people's bodies differently.
And it may or may not rot the teeth out of your mouth like you've been doing crystal meth your whole life.
Right, but aside...
Can I use that excuse at Walmart?
Yeah.
When I'm at the lab?
Aside from those things, they're also basically hiding it in other foods to get rid of it. So tomato sauce, which really doesn't need to be sweet, is now loaded with high fructose corn syrup. Random foods that you eat, if you walk through the supermarket and just pick up boxes and read them, things that are not sweet in your mental perception are loaded now with high fructose corn syrup because the corn industry has to get rid of it somehow.
And all of this is ultimately can be tied to one cause, that Iowa has the first true primary in the nation.
Yeah.
In true fat guy form, this conversation is making me hungry.
What is the high fructose corn syrup count in a wiener? Are we going to have a chemist from URI on at some point? That was a suggestion to do a wiener analysis.
I want to know more about your hate mail.
I'd go for that.
My hate mail. Well, again, like I said, if I had any feelings left at the age of 53, I'd be hurt. But it's just people just came out of the woodwork and just threw these grenades, these verbal grenades at me. And the thing was, none of it made really any sense. That I was a corporatist welfare cheat.
Actually, that does make sense. It just doesn't apply to you.
Not in the way that...
It doesn't apply to you because you're not a CEO.
No, and there's no chance of that either.
Corporate welfare is massive compared to individual people welfare.
But that wasn't like their intended... It just... They
were accusing you of cheating on your EBT cards.
It was just these random assemblage of thoughts. And when I posed the question, I would pose a question back because I wanted to keep dragging it back to the issues. That was just another excuse to be outraged and so. And then all of a sudden, when it was established that I had some sort of progressive cred, I don't know. Then all of a sudden, everybody went away. I call them, and I hate to say this, but I will anyway. The Occupy movement struck me as a number of very sincere people who were angry, but they couldn't exactly. They knew what they were angry about, but they couldn't come up with any sort of going forward resolution or how to attach that anger. So all of their expressions, and this is the irony. This is not unlike the conservative talk radio crowd. All right, everybody's PO'd, everybody's angry, everybody's going to wipe out their emotions describing how angry they are in whether it be an online or a verbal format, and then not really do a damn thing about it.
I mean, the only issue is the conservative talk radio crowd has the financing to back it up. Right? They can perpetuate it with the powdery wigs and the people that are willing to underwrite or buy ads or.
Right. Well, the Occupy movement, there is a core group that has a message and they're on message, and it tends to get lost in the media because I think I've mentioned this before, there's a tendency for reporters to show up, stick a microphone in the face of the person on the edge of the crowd, right, ask a couple questions, and then run away.
And they marginalize some good people.
And the person on the edge of the crowd usually is a marginal character, both literally and figuratively. That's the oddball in the strange costume, who